I asked my podcast partner Jen Akins to pound the table for a sleeper wide receiver this week. Jen, who you pounding the table for?
This week, my table pounding is for Rashid Shaheed. Right
Ooh.
now, in redraft, 15.8 is his ADP, and on underdog, 14.9. I mean, we're looking at a New Orleans offense that hopefully will be improved this season. You have Derek Carr. Michael Thomas is Michael Thomas, right? If he doesn't show up, Rashid Shaheed is their wide receiver too. And I mean, he had a solid rookie campaign last year, so he's super cheap. I'm all in.
I love it. I love it. Rashid Shaheed. We'll talk about that New Orleans offense a little bit, I think, later on as we talk about some of the offenses to target. I like it. Rashid Shaheed. You heard it from Jen. Go get you some Rashid Shaheed. Now let's get to the show. Welcome, everyone, to the Most Accurate Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Niles. With me is my excellent co-host, the incomparable Jen Akins. Jen, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm here, right? Monday night, I'm here. You know, Rashid Shaheed is a tongue twister. Say that like 10 times or even 5.
It is. You were challenging me there, and I kept saying it too. I was like the person who didn't know what else to say, just kept saying the same thing over and over again.
And like that's the name that you keep checking to make sure that really is the name, and you're not just like rhyming to rhyme. How people, we do that sometimes. Like how people say Reese's Pieces, which is really annoying because it's not Reese's Pieces, it's Reese's Pieces. But anyway, I'm good. How are you?
Some hard language toward the Reese's Pieces crowd out there right now.
It just drives me nuts. Like it's lazy. Like it's not Reese's Pieces. Anyway, I don't know where that. Yeah.
No, this is good. This is the type of like hard hitting stuff we bring up on this podcast. This is why people listen. This is
it's June, right?
It's very much June. So no guest this week. It's going to be Jen and I, which I'm always psyched about. I love spending an hour with Jen, or maybe less than an hour. We'll see how long we go tonight. But we're gonna have a great time chatting about late round wide receivers to target. I like talking about late round guys because when we talk about the players to target early in drafts, it's so dependent upon draft slot, so dependent on the strategy that you employ early in the draft. These late round guys, you could just target them. If this is your guy, you can plant your flag, reach around early, and get them, and that's always a good thing. So I like that a lot. This is the type of episode that I'm kind of here for. Hi, Zachary Murdoch. Thank you so much for joining us and listening. Happy Monday to you as well. So Jen, let's start real quick. I want to talk about some of the teams before we get into very specific. So teams that you might want to get a piece of, even if you can't get the top guy. We talked about New Orleans already. Chris Olave is the top guy going way early. Rashid Shaheed is the late round guy to target. Any other teams you just want to make sure you get a piece of that offense?
Yes, and you're going to continue to say "piece" like 10 times just to like get in my ear.
All the pieces of the offense.
Right? The pieces of these offenses. Listen, the Vikings. I mean, it's funny because nobody wants to draft Kirk Cousins. Every year, everyone's like, no. But the Vikings had the third most passing attempts last year, 672. Like, that's a lot of passing attempts in a year. They have the same, offense. So I if you can't get Justin Jefferson, which you're not going to get unless you're the 1-1, or maybe the 1-2 if he slips. But let's be realistic. If you're not in that spot, you're not getting him. But I'll take Jordan Addison. I'll take KJ Osborne. I got no problem with that. And I like that. So that's one of the ones. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to alternate on ones that you like too?
Keep going. Yeah, you might end up with some of the same ones I've got.
Probably.
Come from you
right. I would think so. But another one, I like, and for the same obvious reason, the Bengals, they had the 7th most attempts last year. They're probably going to run a very similar, if not the same offense. So why not, go with some Tyler Boyd late, because why not? And yeah. But I've got a couple that I feel like are a little bit, people maybe not targeting just based on they're not projected to be very good.
Sure.
But you've got the Colts and the Texans probably playing from behind for, I don't know, 17 games, 16 out of 17, whatever it is. They probably will be playing from behind. They probably will be chucking the ball, and they're all cheap. All the Colts, all the Texans. I mean, we'll get into some of those guys later because I think we both have them in our guys to target. But both of those offenses are incredibly cheap, and I think that some of that, a big portion of that is going to depend on quarterback play. So if their quarterbacks stink, they might stink. But we're looking at, 2 rookie quarterbacks probably playing from behind. So why not grab those guys?
I'm with you. Houston is high on my list, actually, for a couple reasons. Number one, the reason you said they're going to be playing from behind a lot. They also have a rookie quarterback who's really accurate and has a great arm, and I feel like maybe they might want to show that off a little bit. And then the other aspect is, who's the main guy in Houston? Probably Nico Collins, maybe Dalton Schultz, but it's very much a prime spot for someone to emerge and come out there. So grabbing someone late in that offense, like you said, everyone's cheap. It's worth stashing that player, or if you're in a best ball league, taking a few darts. But in a redraft, even in a redraft league, grabbing someone like John Metchie, who we'll get to later, it's worth taking that, taking that risk, I think.
I will say, I'm sorry, before you go, I don't mean to cut you off, but
Sure.
One thing about the Texans, though, that is a little bit scary, and we've talked about this quite a bit this offseason. I personally, and I'm sure a lot of people, got burned on this exact same thing last year. Like, same theory going in.
Kind of.
Davis Mills, he's not going to, they're going to be playing from behind. There's no, it was Brandon Cooks and then everybody else, and someone has to emerge, and nobody emerged. So we could be setting ourselves up for a little bit of a disappointment again, but the process leads us there, so we're going to do it.
I think the thought here, though, is that CJ Stroud is significantly better than Davis Mills. I think that's the thought process.
We'd like to think so. Absolutely. But I feel like last year we kind of all jumped on that because it seemed like a really good spot for somebody, and John Metchie, unfortunately was out, we found out, earlier on in the off season, and then it was even more open. Like, what are we going to do? There's someone has to emerge there. And the answer was nobody last year, but like you said, they should be, improve enough that we want to count on them, but still be bad enough that they're going to be chucking the ball, in the second half of most games.
That's what I would think. Before I get to 2 other teams I want to bring up real quick, of teams that I'm targeting. And obviously, pieces of Kansas City and Buffalo are all interesting, but I like these like off the beaten path. Yeah. So Mr. Scampers has come in. Hi, Mr. Scampers. Mr. Scampers is part of team Reese's Pieces.
That's the same team as me there, Scampers.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. And Jamie Perog, hi. Nice to see you. Has a trade question. Let's entertain real quick. Brock Purdy question. Would you trade away Metchie, a 2024 second and third for Brock Purdy? They have Trey Lance as their quarterback in a super flex. So super flex, you're giving away Brock Purdy, I think, is what I'm getting. Either way, I think in a super flex, if you need a quarterback, I like the Brock Purdy side. If you've got quarterbacks, then I like picking up that second and third rounder, because right now Purdy is enough of an unknown that in a year he might be worth 2 firsts in a super flex, or in a year he might be worth nothing in a super flex. So I think getting a second and a third plus an upside wide receiver is pretty good value right now. Again, really depends on how badly you need a quarterback. If you really need a quarterback, I'd hang on to Purdy. They're acquiring Brock Purdy. Okay, so I would hold on to Purdy if you need a quarterback, but if you don't, I like that package for you. I think that's good stuff. Another team, what about Carolina? I know that's the other rookie quarterback situation. All those receivers are cheap. Another team that I think will probably be playing from behind pretty frequently, and all those guys are kind of interesting. Adam Thielen and DJ Chark and Terrace Marshall. Are you targeting any of those Carolina Panther late round receivers?
Yeah, I am. And we'll get into that a little bit later as well. But Carolina is an enigma. Like, we have no clue really what they're going to do. Like, as far as their, scheme, if they're going to go super run heavy, if they're going to go pass heavy. I mean, it's kind of starting fresh with everything. It'll be their first season without McCaffrey. It should be interesting. You have Miles Sanders. So, yeah, I mean, why not? I would target those guys. I haven't, I think a lot of people, and like I said, we'll get into this a little later, but I think a lot of people are really targeting Mingo when I'm kind of going more on the Thielen train. But we'll get to that later. I do have one more, but actually you have one more too, you said, right? So it might be the same. So go for it.
Yeah, Jacksonville was the other one for me.
Yeah, me too.
Kind of the same reason. Big offense, going to throw a lot. They spread the ball around a lot last year, and so somebody could really emerge. Zay Jones is still floating around there.
Yeah, they had the 9th most attempts last year. So. And there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of late round wide receivers to pick from. I mean, once you get past Ridley, they're all pretty cheap. Well, Kirk is medium, but there's a bunch of other guys there. And, Chenault is now gone, if that's something that people care about, to open up a little more. But
Zay Jones, killer destroyer of fantasy seasons last year.
Yeah.
Just blowing up in the playoffs. He knocked me out of a league that I was heavily favored in. I was very
Oh,
upset.
really?
I'm never going to get over this, Jen. I'm never going to get over this.
I know. I know you well enough to know.
All right. So the next question I want to get into when we talk about sleeper receivers, quickly, I want to speak to best ball because it's still best ball season. I wanted to focus mostly on redraft targets with this episode, but best ball strategy on murky situations. I'm talking about those Houston teams or those teams where you're not really sure which receiver is going to be the guy. When you're doing best ball leagues, you're usually drafting more than one, usually drafting quite a few. Do you diversify those targets, those late round targets, like try to get a piece of everyone? Or do you end up really just kind of taking as many of your guy as you can?
I think in theory, diversifying is probably the right way to go, especially in a tournament situation, because you don't want to go all in on Adam Thielen when it ends up being DJ Chark and you kind of, handicap yourself, so to speak. So in theory, you should diversify. Do I do it? Not as much as I should. Because like you said, you have your guy and then he's there and you get excited on a 30-second clock and you just pick him. And then you realize after like, ooh, I maybe shouldn't have. But I think if you're doing a bunch, you should diversify because we have the NFL season, we know it's there are things that are there, but a lot of it is a crapshoot. And if someone goes down and then all of a sudden someone else becomes the guy and you did not invest in them at all, then you're kind of, you're screwing yourself. So in best ball, yes, I would try to diversify as much as you can, especially like you said, in those kind of murky, crowded wide receiver rooms.
This is what I need to tell myself that with the Giants every single day because I just keep taking Isaiah Hodgins every time.
I just keep not taking any Giants and just leaving it at that.
It's definitely not one of the offenses that I'm saying. I need to get a piece of that.
No, that's the thing too. But then again, you've got, Daniel Jones is sometimes good and you're just like, crap, I don't have any of these guys. But then again, it could just be one of those things where it just changes week to week and then none of them are actually good for best ball. And they also kill you in redraft because you're staring at Hodgins going, do I start him this week? And then you don't. And then that's the week he scores 2 touchdowns. And then you start him the next week and he has 1 target. So that's
Are you taking Waller in that offense? I'm just curious. I know he's not too expensive right now. I can't remember his ADP right now, but
I was taking Waller earlier on in the spring and I kind of stopped. Because I just kind of decided I'm completely punting tight end in best ball and just going to the end of the line. But I definitely have shares because I took him earlier on this summer. He's a little scary, but if him and Daniel Jones are on, then he can be fantastic. He might end up being a target monster, but he could also not. You're on mute.
Yeah, looks like he's going 7th round right now. So that's
is he?
That's about right. That's about where I'm starting to sniff around the tight end position.
Yeah, Jamie Paris Campbell, I'm with you. I've kind of gotten back on the train. He's been rough. We've invested him in past season and it hasn't happened. But Paris Campbell, possibly in this offense could be better off. But I felt like that explosion was coming with the Colts and it just never did.
That was kind of my thing. I'm prone to that though. Somebody who I've been waiting to take off for a while and they just haven't done it yet. I tend to kind of
he got hurt too.
Yeah, true.
And Matt Ryan was horrible. So
he was so bad.
He had a little bad.
I don't know how he was that bad. He wasn't supposed to be that bad.
He was bad, and he was such a great value in best ball. Last summer going in, he's gonna crush it, and he was bad.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk rookies because I know you can't get enough of rookies, but at least here we've got rookies that are in places. Now I don't want to talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba and the guys that are going really high, but obviously those sleepers a little later round. Any rookies that you're targeting or any rookies you're specifically avoiding late?
Yeah, I've got several of both. Let's see. Who should I've got 4 guys written down of who I want, and I've got about 2 guys that I don't. So I'll start with guys that I want.
Mm-hmm.
One of them I'm not going to do because he's actually one of your guys that you like. So I'm gonna save him.
Okay.
You can talk about him. But one guy I do like is Marvin Mims. Right now in redraft, he is. I'm sorry. On Underdog, he's his ADP is 1408. In Yahoo redraft, he is a 22nd round pick right now. That Broncos offense is very, we don't know what's going to happen there. But at the same time, Marvin Mims has had a good start to mini camps and OTAs. Sean Payton, different offense. If Russell Wilson, becomes at least a semblance of what we had Russell Wilson in the past, Marvin Mims is a guy that could sneak up on all of us, and he's ridiculously cheap. I mean, he's a 22nd rounder in redraft, which basically means he's not being drafted. And he's actually moved up to the 14th round in underdog. He was like an 18th rounder for quite a while. You could get him, with your final pick. But I do like him. Another guy I like, and we just talked a bunch about the offense, is Jamie's saying Roschon Johnson. However, this is a wide receiver show, but I do like Roschon Johnson, but we're talking wide receivers. But the other guy that we just talked about the offense is Josh Downs. He's a 17th rounder right now on underdog and a 24th rounder in Yahoo, which I don't even know how they get those numbers, because are people really drafting 24 rounds in Yahoo drafts? I don't know. But either way, super cheap. That offense is interesting, right? You have Michael Pittman is the clear wide receiver one. You have Alec Pierce, and then you have Josh Downs, and then you have like 7 tight ends. So we'll see what happens with Josh Downs, but he's really cheap, and I feel like, he could emerge or he could not. But it's one of those things, like if you take him with your last round pick in a redraft, you could, drop him by week 2 if he's not good. And in best ball, if he explodes for a couple weeks, he could be a league winner. You never know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got one more guy that I'll talk about. And then once again, it's in one of those offenses that we just talked about, is for the Texans. I mean, it is not Tank Dell, it is Xavier Hutchinson. He plays really big, and there's been a lot of training camp hype on this guy. And I feel like he's kind of a contrarian pick to Tank Bell, right? A lot of people are like, oh, Tank Bell, but this guy's in the mix. He's an 18th round pick. He's a basically final pick in underdog. Like his ADP is 1812, which is the very last pick. He's not even on the board in redraft at the moment. So, we'll see kind of how training camps pan out, and if someone, if Tank Dell is emerging or something else is happening. But like you said earlier in this podcast, someone's going to emerge and get the snap, or get the, the targets in this offense after Nico Collins and Metchie, or, so why not Xavier Hutchinson?
Yeah, I like that. And Tank Dell certainly doesn't profile as someone who's going to be a target hog. Like
right.
He's going to have a couple of highlights this year. He's probably going to win the return job, but he's probably not going to be someone who's going to rack up enough targets to make it worth actually starting him in leagues, and probably even minimal best ball value, I would guess. So yeah, Hutchinson, why not? I kind of like Michael Wilson, the 3rd round draft pick for the Cardinals. He's going like 25th round in our multi-site ADP right now on that tool. So you can get him with one of your last picks, and there's no wide receiver 2 set in Arizona. It's maybe Rondale Moore, but he fits better in the slot. And
there's also no quarterback throwing the ball right now.
Look, don't quibble with me, Jen.
I'm just saying.
You're not buying all the hype that we're hearing about Clayton Tooney?
No, who? No, I'm not.
All the camp hype is that.
No, we'll see. I mean, like you said, it can be anyone, and we'll see. Some of this will be firmed up as we get closer on. Once the real, the actual training camps begin in July, and we start, we might see that the Michael Wilson might emerge, or he might suck. But at this point, when you're just taking random stabs and dart throws, why not?
Yeah, and Wilson, honestly, had he not had injury issues in college, I think he probably would have been a higher drafted pick. He profiles as an X receiver, which is something Arizona doesn't have on the roster outside of him. Marquise Hollywood Brown is very good and can play that role, but he's more of a Z style, whereas Michael Wilson is really that outside threat. So he fills a hole that Arizona doesn't have. And I think that in a Cliff Kingsbury offense, it's very possible he could emerge. So as a late round back of my roster, 5th or 6th receiver that I'm hoping for a little bit of a lottery ticket, I love him. He's on a lot of my rosters in that regard.
I do not have any Michael Wilson, but I may start. You never know. We're always looking for those late round guys. That's what this whole podcast is for.
In Dynasty, I like Hutchinson better than Parker Washington, Jamie, just so you know. That's a question that we got. I wanted to also say I'm not really drafting Rashee Rice. In Dynasty, I might be the Chiefs receiver 2nd round pick, but I got burned by Skyy Moore last year. And Kansas City, we know that the main guy there is Travis Kelce. And so I don't want the lineup decisions or to worry about it.
I wish that you could see my little sheet here, because I have the same as the don't want.
Oh.
I have Rashee Rice as well. I also have Jalen Hyatt for the same reason I just discussed with you earlier. I mean, they've already said, like, at camp, he's running with the threes already. So that's not promising. And B, there's like 25 wide receivers there right now. So, and it's with Saquon Barkley in the mix. And like we said, Waller, I just don't know that Jalen Hyatt's going to see the field enough to even be a dart throw. So he is someone that I am not going for at all.
I agree. And a lot of receivers in New York that do what Jalen Hyatt does. So it's not even, you can't even look at him. Like, that's my Isaiah Hodgins argument, which we'll get to, is that he's the only one of the Giants that does what he does well.
Right. No. And I will say, back to Rashee Rice, like, I wrote down, like, when you're looking at his ADP, like, the people that are, like, I mean, give me Alec Pierce, give me Curtis Samuel, give me Thielen, give me Van Jefferson, like, all those guys are right in that range. And I understand that people clamor for wide receivers on good offenses, and the Chiefs are good, right? We can't, but at the same time, like, Rashee Rice might get nothing. I mean, he might be, like you said, like Skyy Moore, where he ends up with no targets and he's a complete bust, or he may not, but I just don't think you can count on him enough. And I feel like there's other guys at that similar ADP that are more guaranteed volume.
Yeah, I'm with you completely. Any other rookies you want to bring up before I move on to our next?
No, that's all I have written down. I mean, obviously, someone in the chat brought up Jalen Reed, and we're going to talk about him later, so we'll just leave him. We'll leave him off for now.
All right. So one more strategy question before we talk about very specific players and targets here. Do you, with your late round receivers, are you swinging for upside, or are you chasing some modest production?
I do a little of both. I try to diversify, because if you go all upside, you could very easily screw yourself into a really bad team. So I try to mix it up, towards the end of the draft. Like I said, like, I'd rather, if I'm going to grab some guys with upside, I also am going to grab Adam Thielen, because I know he's going to have a specific amount of targets. They're going to use him in that Carolina offense. He is the veteran there. So I try to mix it up, but you have to have some upside, especially in best ball. You're not going to win a best ball tournament if you don't swing for the fences for certain guys, but I try to do a little of both. I don't know if that's, the way most people do it, but that's how I rationalize it myself.
No, it makes sense. I'm usually filling my 4th, 5th, 6th receiver spot is usually what I'm doing in the later rounds. Is that about where you are, or is it even later for you?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm so random. Like, I know people, in this industry like to have these like, very stout, like just plans of I'm just not, I'm very like loosey-goosey, go with the flow with every draft I sit down. Like, I don't have, I mean, sometimes I'll knock out, sometimes I'll have 7 wide receivers way before I normally would, or sometimes I'm all of a sudden like, oh crap, it's the 14th round and I only have 3. I just kind of, I'm a strange person in that way. I'm not, no, I mean, I know a lot of people, this industry is very, database and spreadsheet based and all of that. And I'm very not like that, as you know. I'm a right-brained individual in a left-brained world here. Or whatever, the opposite. I don't know. See, I can't. Either way, my point is, because I feel like if you go in like, okay, I'm going to take this, this, and this, and this. I mean, all it takes is one person to screw the whole thing. The guy next to you, or the guy 2 guys over that takes 3 quarterbacks in the first 6 rounds, and then everything is, so you have to be flexible. So if I go in there like already flexible, then I don't even have to bend, right? I'm already there.
And there's always a Du Bois 67 or something like that in there that takes all the Cowboys in the first 7 rounds, and that throws off your ADP too.
There's a lot, you're really dependent on the people around you, and you have no clue when you click that, you jump in a draft. Now, granted, like, if we're talking redraft, home league, certain people, like, I've been in the same home league for a really long time. I know the tendencies of every person in there. So I know if so-and-so on this side of me, like, I know they're not going to take a second quarterback and screw me before I get, like, you kind of know that. But in a random underdog best ball, that you drop into, you have no clue what you're getting. So you have to be flexible. I know it's hard for a lot of fantasy managers to be flexible, especially ones that play a lot of best ball and have a lot of it is planned out, and you just kind of can't. At least that's my perspective.
Yeah, I love that about home leagues. It's one of my favorite things that you can kind of figure that out. Like, I know in my home league, I'm from Oregon, and so anyone that went to Oregon State goes rounds earlier than they should, gets drafted when they shouldn't.
Yeah, no,
And then
same. Yeah, same here. Like I mean, the Broncos depends now, but in past years when the Broncos were really good, you could just people would way overpay. And then same here with like CSU and CU guys. Like if anyone is from the like they're gonna go early, and I just back off. There's nobody I need to have, so I will always let everyone take all the local guys, and I scoop up all the others.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fully expecting Justin Herbert to go top 5 again this year, even though he's coming off a disappointing season. It's a 2 quarterback league, but Royce Freeman, when he was a rookie, went in the first round in that league.
That's funny. Yes, yeah, I know Michael Gallup tends to go early here just because he's a Colorado guy, and like Philip Lindsay was always like people were clamoring. And I love Philip Lindsay. You know, I'm a fan. But
I can't believe he just disappeared. Like I thought he'd do fine.
Was he? I think he was in the XFL or the U. He was in one of those, I believe. This or what? Maybe not. Maybe that was an April Fool's joke. I don't know.
I hope so. I need more Philip Lindsay in my life.
I know right? Just to watch him play, like you just watch and you're just it's amazing. He just kind of undrafted, walked in the league, pumped out a couple 1,000-yard seasons, and then disappeared. Maybe he'll be back someday.
I hope so. Some of the guys, I'm with you. I diversify there late. I try to get an upside guy like a Michael Wilson, try to get a steady performer guy like an Adam Thielen. Other steady guys you could get late, Alan Lazard, if you have to play him on a bye week, even with the Jets, he's probably going to be the wide receiver 2 there. You already talked about Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's a great, steady guy that you can plug into your lineup on bye weeks. DJ Chark is down there too. So those are all decent options there. And then, more upside swing guys. That's where I'm talking about, like the Michael Wilson type of player or somebody else. So I'm with you there. So let's talk about some of your favorites, Jen. Who are some of your favorite late round wide receivers that you find yourself drafting more often than not?
Well, I already talked about Rashid Shaheed, so he's there. He was my pound the table. I'm still a fan. I'm in. Another guy I have is Romeo Doubs. I know that a lot of people are all in on Jalen Reed and super psyched about Jalen Reed, but Romeo Doubs is right now he's a 12th rounder in redraft according to our multi-site tool, and he's an 11th rounder in best ball or in underdog. I mean, that offense right now is a complete crapshoot. Right? I mean, everyone just assumes that Christian Watson is going to be the guy. He's being drafted way too high as it is. And then you've got Romeo Doubs. Like, why not? Everyone's focusing on Watson and Reed. Doubs had a very good, quiet, rookie year last year.
And the camp buzz is on Doubs.
Yeah. I mean, and if, of course, this is all contingent on Jordan Love. He could stink and the whole offense could stink. But for where he's being drafted right now, I'm definitely taking more Doubs. I wasn't earlier in the season, and I've come around and I've been taking a lot of Doubs just because I feel like, especially in a tournament situation, it's a contrarian pick to Reed and Watson that everyone else is focusing on. So I will say Doubs, though. I mean, he's getting a little more traction because I've been watching his ADP and it has slowly gone up a couple rounds, but he's still a double-digit rounder. So.
I love it. I think Doubs is great. And another offense that we could have talked about with Houston and the other teams earlier, a team that we don't really know what to expect from that offense with Jordan Love. It might be really good.
We just don't, And so another guy, similar situation that I like is Alec Pierce, right? I mean, oh wait, you know what? He was supposed to be I forgot. I put a little arrow. I'm supposed to talk about him later. So let's just wait. We'll put a pin in him. We'll talk about him later. And then we'll go back to my other guy, which is Zay Jones. He's the other one I had written down. We've talked about that offense a little bit, but right now he's a late 11th rounder in redraft and a late 10th rounder in underdog. He had the 18th most targets last season out of wide receivers. I understand Calvin Ridley is there now and Christian Kirk is there, but he can still draw a lot of targets. And right now he is the wide receiver 55 on our multi-site, and he is ranked as wide receiver 44. So there's a pretty decent value with him right now based on our 4-for-4 projections and based on where he's being drafted. So Zay Jones for me is another one of those guys.
He's at least the wide receiver 3 on that team, like
right?
in any given day. And
they threw a lot last year. They're going to throw a lot again.
No. He likes Zay Jones. Yeah, I love it. I think for the value there, obviously I'm not going to want to hinge my season on Zay Jones, but I love I
Well,
love
right.
Zay Jones as my wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5.
Exactly.
I think
Right.
that's great.
He's yes, he's where he should be as far as, where he's being drafted. I wouldn't take him ahead of Kirk or or Ridley, just
Certainly.
because there are a lot of bodies there. You even Evan Ingram's there as well, but for where he's being drafted right now, I like him.
And I like his ADP better than I like Ridley's and
Right.
Kirk's. So
Ridley is pretty expensive.
he is, considering he didn't play last year and tanked fantasy seasons the year before.
Right.
So.
Like he basically hasn't played in 2 years. So that's we're assuming he's gonna step right in and be the Calvin Ridley that he was in Atlanta a couple years ago, but we don't know that. I mean, I'm sure he's gonna be fine, but
probably, yeah.
No.
I really like Van Jefferson is the guy that I like. You can get him in the 19th round, according to our multi-site ADP tool. 19th round, Van Jefferson. There's not really anybody else there. Cooper Kupp is great, but outside of Cooper Kupp, he's battling with Ben Skoranek, battling with rookie Puka Nacua, who was not a lot of draft capital. Tutu Atwell doesn't seem like the guy. Maybe Demarcus Robinson's there, but Jefferson's a good route runner and he knows the offense.
Yeah, Van Jefferson has been gaining a lot of traction lately. I write that, bi-monthly ADP risers and fallers, and he's been in there the last 2 iterations of that column. So for the last month, he's been one of the highest rising wide receivers in ADP. So I think we talked about him a couple episodes ago, and someone told me there's some Rams YouTube show or something which might have kind of caused that spike. Because I think that same week it was Matthew Stafford.
Right.
But I've been reading a lot. Like the 2 of them were not healthy together last year, Stafford and Jefferson. They're both healthy now, so why not? Especially like you said, if he's a 19th rounder in redraft, like absolutely.
Yeah, might be the wide receiver 2 there in an offense that we forget the Rams offense was something you wanted to buy into until last year.
Absolutely, 2 years ago they were everything. I mean, they won the Super Bowl for God's sakes.
Absolutely.
They still have Sean McVay, so yeah.
And then we talked about the Giants already. I'll just read it. I am buying Isaiah Hodgins. He scored 4 touchdowns in 5 starts last year. Seemed to be heavily play. I mean, he played more than 5 games, but he had 5 starts. And then in the playoffs, he was heavily targeted and seemed to have a really, really nice connection with Daniel Jones. Seems to have a role in that offense. Like I said, he does things that the rest of the wide receivers don't. Now he does do things that Darren Waller does really well, so that's concerning. But again, wide receiver 5, like in the 13th round, like I like that. I like Isaiah Hodgins. So
I don't hate it. I mean, I've taken a little bit of him here and there. I don't know. We'll see in redraft if I want to deal with the headache of that offense. At the moment, my inclination is to not take any Giants because every week having to decide whether to put them in or not might kill me. But in best ball, if I don't have to look at it, then sure.
Yeah, then you get the touchdown, so that works out well.
You get the touchdown.
He's also an Oregon State alumni, so I'm not exactly objective on that one. So I will say.
I'm no one to talk about college bias by any stretch. Surprisingly, I have not brought up one UGA player, but that's because we're talking wide receivers, and there are none this season.
That's right. They're all quarterbacks and running backs are all the UGA and tight ends soon to be. So. But,
now Darnell Washington, we can talk about him. I'd throw him in there.
Are you expecting anything from Darnell Washington this year, though? He's kind of buried.
I'm secretly expecting him because I'm secretly expecting Freiermuth to unfortunately, I hate to say this because he had several concussions last year. So have
You're
that.
Not wrong.
If it comes, not wishing it on anybody ever, ever, ever. I'd like to say that ever, but. God forbid, he gets concussed again. I assume that they're going to make him. I don't know. So that's my only thought process is possibly Freiermuth if he gets utilized a lot and he gets, in kind of a la Kittle, right? Kittle always gets hurt because he plays like a maniac. If Freiermuth kind of goes down that same path, Darnell Washington might stroll in there and surprise some people because he's good.
It's possible. I like Darnell Washington, so I hope he does well. He's a talented kid. So, what about the Baltimore receiving core? I know you're not a Baltimore offense person in general, but Zay Flowers, all the news on him is nice. Is this just a Skyy Moore thing that's going to burn me again, or is he really somebody who might in this new offense, surprise some people?
I think it could go either way, Brandon.
Yeah.
I mean,
14th round.
It could definitely go either way. I think of all those guys, though. I mean, between Odell Beckham, Bateman and Flowers, I would take Flowers. Like if you made me take one of the Ravens offense or one of the Ravens wide receivers, I will take Flowers. But I don't know Like I said, similar to the Giants. I don't know that I want that headache every week in redraft, but in best ball, I have taken Flowers for sure.
Interesting. And I stepped on my Who'd You Rather segment later. I didn't mean to, but I was gonna bring up Zay Flowers as someone that I like.
That's where I thought we were, because in my head I was like, I remember reading something about Flowers, but I didn't write anything down. So
I stepped on it because I was about to talk about Zay Flowers, and then
it's okay.
So I want to mention one more person. Again, John Metchie, 21st round. He's a lottery ticket. He could be nothing. He might not play at all this year, right? But seems like he's healthy. Seems like he's gotten past the illness, unfortunately, that he had to deal with. But I'm glad he seems to be doing okay. And then he's a talented kid, like super talented, fast.
Absolutely, I think he's a great dart throw.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so those are my favorite ones. What's your favorite just absolute dart throw lottery ticket boom bust guy? Somebody who you expect nothing or a lot.
Okay, so I brought him up before, and then I stopped myself. Alec Pierce, because I feel like, he's right now he is the wide receiver 2 in that offense after Pittman. He's a 17th rounder in redraft and a 13th rounder on underdog. He came on pretty strong at the end of 2022. He was basically a wide receiver 5, right, in the last 5 games, but he also was wide receiver 14 in week 14. So in half PPR scoring. So, he came on well enough to see there's something there. The reason that he's a complete dart throw is that Anthony Richardson, we just don't know, right? He could stink or he could be amazing. And then Alec Pierce is all of a sudden somehow, a wide receiver 2/3 in fantasy, and you're getting him in the 17th round. So he could also be a wide receiver 8, and suck and score 2.3 fantasy points a game. We just don't know what's going to happen there. Last year, kind of like we said earlier, Matt Ryan stunk, and hence the entire Colts offense stunk as far as receiving options. There was nobody there. But so we may end up there, or he may be really good. So I like him. I like where he's being drafted. You can't really get, a wide receiver 2 on a team for that cheap, like basically the second to last round.
And he seems to have a stranglehold on that role. So
right.
I agree with you. And I like the kid, coming out of Cincinnati last year. Talented kid. For me, it's Jaden Reed, because I think he's either Chris Olave or Skyy Moore this year. I think that's his range of outcomes. I think he's going to be a really, really good dominant force as a rookie, or he's not going to see the field at all. But he's available in the 17th round. And so, if I'm taking a lottery ticket, I really like the kid. Loved his athletic profile coming out of college. I think he might win the return job. He might do a lot of little things. But if he wins that wide receiver 2 job, or if Dobbs has injury issues again, or Watson struggles, but Jordan Love seems to succeed, then I think Jaden Reed could really do a lot in that offense. So excited about that kid.
Yeah, a lot of people are. I'm actually surprised that he's still as affordable as he is, because I feel like I see a lot of, and granted, it's just like on Twitter, so it's a small microcosm that we think is huge, but it's not. And so I am surprised, though, that Reed is still, relatively inexpensive, just because a lot of people are excited about him. And like I said, I'm kind of going the opposite and going with Dobbs. It probably will bite me in the ass, but you never know.
All right, let's do a 3 who'd you rathers. I already kind of talked about Baltimore. You said Zay Flowers was the Ravens receiver that you would go after if you're going after one of them at all. Let's do 3 who'd you rathers, and then we'll let you go. I want to do players that are being drafted at the same time, so that ADP is not a factor. So
and I didn't even see this section on the sheet, so I'll be flying by the seat of my pants.
That's okay. Basically, Carolina Panthers, DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, both going in the 11th round. Which one would you rather have?
That's tough, because the answer is kind of a both. I like both. I feel like you need to kind of, but if you're sitting here looking at a redraft team, and I had to pick one, because I'm not going to obviously take both for redraft, maybe Chark for youth. I don't know. I like Thielen though too. Yeah, I'm just going to go Chark for youth. Maybe I don't know. That's it. Maybe he has more on the tires, or more on the whatever I don't know. Is tires just a running back expression, or can we do that for?
I think you can. I think that's a metaphor you can use for anything.
Wide receiver that's getting long in the tooth. He has, I don't know, oil left in the can or something. I don't know.
Oil left in the can. I love it. I agree with you for the most part. I might take Thielen if I've already got too many upside guys on my roster. I
Right.
might take Thielen knowing I could plug and play him
Yeah.
occasionally, but generally speaking, in a vacuum, I'd probably pick Chark as well for the same reason.
Yeah, I mean Thielen, you're looking at touchdown guy, right? He's going to be touchdown dependent, but if he gets those, then you're loving it.
Yep.
If he doesn't, then you're not.
and in best ball, I think you hit the nail on the head. Diversify, like have some of both. So that I'm going to talk about two rookies, last year rookies, who had very disappointing rookie seasons for wildly different reasons. And talk about going into their sophomore season. So Jameson Williams, 14th round, right? Jameson Williams obviously going to miss 6 weeks for gambling suspension, but is otherwise healthy. Or Skyy Moore, who is once again getting lots of offseason chatter like he did last year, but barely saw the field on offense a season ago. So which one in the 14th round, if you have to take one, Jen?
Woo! All right, I'm gonna go Jameson Williams, and that is just because I understand he's missing those games, but I also think that he has more of a clearer path to targets upon return. In that Detroit offense, there's not a lot of options there. I mean, there's good options, obviously, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown, good.
Sure.
I just feel like Jameson Williams can kind of step right back in after his 6-game suspension and be, and I feel like Skyy Moore, I mean, the Kansas City offense is not predictable in any way, shape, or form. I mean, there's so many bodies there. And like you said, Skyy Moore, I feel like, and maybe I'm just burnt from, Mecole Hardman, right? It's like we waited every year.
Kept waiting.
This is the year. And I feel like here we are with Skyy Moore. It's going to be the same thing. Like if this is the year, and then he's going to have like a couple games where he's targeted a bunch, and then a couple where he's not at all. He's not even part of the plan. So I really, I'm not taking Skyy Moore unless I really have to, but there's no reason why you have to. So Jameson Williams is my answer.
I like that. I want it to be Skyy Moore, but I think you're right. I think ultimately Jameson Williams just has a little bit more likelihood of contributing throughout the season. And like you said, Kansas City's a mess. It's Travis Kelce, and that's just what I need to remember every season. It's just Travis Kelce. Everyone else is a crapshoot.
So Mr. Camper says more teeth in his tool drawer. What does that even mean?
Oh, you were talking about long in the tooth?
No, I know, but I mean, how is that? Who has teeth in their tool? Oh, you mean like teeth on a comb? No, I don't know. I don't know what that would even mean. Like
Mr. Scamper says this phrase should be more teeth in his tool drawer. I'm not quite certain.
Right? Like, how is that an expression? Like, are there teeth in your tool drawer? Unless you're talking about teeth on like some sort of a tool. Is there
That's
a tool
what I would think. Yeah, that's got to be it.
Like a saw? Are those teeth?
Or perhaps Mr. Scampers has some extracurriculars that that are concerning. It's very possible.
Collects teeth out in the shed in the tool drawer.
It's possible. You never know. So thank you for that, Mr. Scampers. Appreciate that. One more for you. We already talked about Van Jefferson just a little bit. So Van Jefferson, 19th round, another guy, a familiar face to us over years. Robert Woods. What do you think about Robert Woods or Van Jefferson, both in the 19th round?
Van Jefferson.
Yeah.
I cannot go back to the Robert Woods. Again, the well has run dry for Robert Woods and I. We are parting ways. As I said, like he kind of, he's part of the Brandon Cooks All-Stars for me. I can't do it. I have heavily invested in Robert Woods. I just feel like, I don't know. I don't see a big resurgence happening there for him. I just don't. I bought in last year. I really did. And it definitely did not pan out. So for all the reasons we discussed about 5 minutes ago, Van Jefferson for me.
All right. I'm with you. I completely agree. Okay. So that's all I've got. Anyone we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about today, Jen?
Let me look at my handy dandy sheet here. I don't think so. I think we kind of went over a lot of the, we didn't talk about Washington. I like Curtis Samuel. I feel like, last year he was kind of hit or miss. He had, I think he was hurt, but he had some good games and then he didn't. It's another offense where quarterback is a huge question mark. Like, is Sam Howell good? We don't know. Will it be Jacoby Brissett? Don't know either. Dotson is definitely, I don't know what his ADP is, but I believe it's single.
Too high.
So I feel like Samuel is a guy that might be, left behind just because people are really excited about Dotson and obviously Terry McLaurin there as well. So Samuel is someone that I will have some shares of just because he is cheap, and if Sam Howell happens to be good, or if he doesn't and they turn to Jacoby Brissett, who is certainly serviceable, and Samuel stays healthy. I think it was a hammy or a soft tissue. I don't remember exactly what.
Yeah, he's dealt with a lot of those,
had
a
a lot.
myriad of those types of injuries.
But if he can stay healthy, there's not a ton. They're dealing with Logan Thomas again for the 97th season in a row. I mean, that guy is, I'd love Logan Thomas to be good, but I think he's done. So there's not a huge pass catching, arsenal in there in Washington. So roundabout way, I've been talking for too long about Curtis Samuel, but I kind of like him. I didn't even plan on it, but now that I'm kind of like him.
I like it. I'm good with Curtis Samuel. I like adding a little Curtis Samuel to the mix. Why not? Also, again, we're talking about a 17th round pick. So you hold him for a little while, and if you can't get on the field, you can drop him for somebody else. But these late round receivers, there's value to be had. There's absolutely value to be had.
Plenty. And those are going to change. I mean, we can probably do another episode on this entire topic in a month from now and have different, options based on training camp, because you just don't know. The training camp, once the hype begins and people get on those trains, and then the ADPs will rise, plummet, all of a sudden Jalen Hyatt could be back out with the ones, and then we're all scrambling. I'm just kidding. I don't foresee that happening, but.
And I fall for a receiver every year. I do. I'm pretty good at navigating the running back chatter, the quarterback chatter, pretty good at seeing it. Receivers, I always fall for one guy.
But everybody does, because there's so many. I mean, it's the most, it's a position with the most guys. And so everyone's clamoring for sleepers. So, everyone falls for something. I mean, listen, you talked about Michael Wilson. I'm writing him down. I'm going to start drafting him. That's how it works.
All that camp buzz, baby. All that camp buzz is happening. All right. So, thank you, Jen. Always a pleasure. Any final thoughts or plugs before we go?
No. We've got a lot of content on 4for4 right now. A lot of player profiles. We've done over 100 player profiles this offseason.
Wow.
Collectively between the rookie ones, the free agent ones, the post-draft ones, and then now just the top 100 ADP. So we've done, over 100 player profiles. There's a ton of content. Go check it out. Most of it's free. Some is paid, but most of it's free. So check it out there and buy a subscription. That would be great too. We still have early bird through, I think, mid-July or maybe end of July. I can't remember.
I think so. I just saw a promo out, so there's it's at least currently going on. So that's excellent. Yeah, come and join 4for4. Thank you again, listeners. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Jen Akins NFL and at 2guysbrandon. Thanks for checking us out. Have a good day.